Sometimes I ask myself if all the pain I've felt, the heartbreak, the shame, the silence, the loneliness, if all of that disappeared overnight, would I still be me? நான் இந்த போஸ்ட்டை இன்ஸ்டாகிராமில் பார்த்தேன். ஸோ இட் காட் இன் டு மை ஹெட் அண்ட் த ஹோல் வீக் ஹேஸ் பின் me pondering about this question and how am I dealing with my pain. நான் அதுலேருந்து எப்படி வெளியே வரேன்? am I out of it yet or do I still process it? am I healing அப்படிங்கிற கொஸ்டின் எனக்குள்ளே இந்த வாரம் ஃபுல்லாக ஓடிட்டே இருந்துச்சு. நான் இதை பற்றி யோசிச்சுட்டே இருக்கும்போது ஐ தாட் ஐல் ரைட் சம்திங் அபவுட் இட் because it's easier writing than trying to come up with words. And I thought I'll talk about this on this episode. So let's get into it. You're now listening to AD, and this is Tea Dum Kadegal. You know, sometimes I wonder if all of my pain disappeared, would I still recognize myself? Like, who would I be without the late night overthinking? Without the quiet ache I carry around like a second skin? Would I still write the same? Would I still feel things this deeply? Would I still pause mid sentence because my thoughts are too heavy to finish? They say pain makes you stronger, but to be honest, it just made me quieter, more cautious, more closed off, more selective with who gets to know me beyond the surface. I don't hate my pain, that's the thing. It has hurt me, but it has also shaped who I am. It is the reason I notice the lonely kid in the back, the reason I check in on people who say I'm fine too quickly, the reason my art hits a little differently, because I've felt it, all of it. But then again, what if healing doesn't mean erasing pain? What if it means carrying it differently, like a scar instead of a wound, like a song instead of silence, like wisdom instead of fear? Sometimes I catch glimpses of the person I could have been if life had been easier, lighter, and kinder. And I feel a strange kind of grief for that version of me, the one who might have laughed louder, trusted quicker, loved without bracing for heartbreak. But maybe the me I became is exactly who I was meant to be, even if it hurts, even if it's messy, even if I still don't have all the answers. Would I still be me without my pain? I don't know. But I think I'd still be someone worth loving, someone worth listening to, someone who's trying. நான் இதை எழுதிட்டு இருக்கும்போது எனக்கு நிறையா கொஸ்டின்ஸ் என் மைண்டில் வந்துச்சு. அதில் ஃபஸ்ட்டு நான் என்ன யோசித்தேன்னா, என் பெயினை என் ஐடென்டிட்டியாக நான் மாற்றிக்கிட்டேனா அப்படின்னு ஒரு கொஸ்டின் எனக்குள்ளேயே வந்துச்சு. லைக் அதை பற்றி நான் நிறைய யோசிக்கும்போது ஐ ரியலைஸ்ட் நான் நிறைய டைம் ஐ ஆம் யூஸ் டு பீயிங் அலோன். ஐ ஆம் யூஸ் டு டூயிங் திங்ஸ் பை மை செல்ஃப். ஆர் ஐ சே லைக் ஐ டோன்ட் ட்ரஸ்ட் பீப்புள் தட் ஈஸிலி அப்படின்னு நானே நான் நிறைய டைம் சொல்கிறத கேட்டு நோட்டீஸ் பண்ணியிருந்திருக்கேன். ஸோ தட் காட் மீ திங்கிங், am I getting attached to the pain? It turns out I was, but not because for some flashy reason. It just felt predictable, it just felt familiar. அந்த ஃபெமிலியாரிட்டி என்னை கொஞ்சம் பெயின் கூட அட்டாச் ஆக வச்சிருச்சோ அப்படின்னு நான் யோசித்தேன். What I came to realize is that sometimes pain in our life becomes so constant that we confuse it for personality. And maybe I took my pain as a big part of my personality as well. And I have a question that I want you guys to ask yourself. If you weren't always on guard, who would you be? And the second question that popped into my mind is, what if I'm looking at healing the wrong way? I've always thought like healing would be the destination, because people always say once you're healed things will be different. But is healing the destination? Probably not. I realized healing is constantly happening. We mess up, we go back to our old ways, but The thought of changing becomes the fuel to our healing. Like, oftentimes I get frustrated at myself for not, getting better. And sometimes I feel like I am getting better, but then I'll just fall back to my old ways. And sometimes I get really frustrated over how the things that I am still hurting for is, something that happened like way long ago. Like, why am I still not over it? And why am I still thinking a lot about it? I realized healing is kind of like a wave. It comes, it goes, but it keeps us moving. It keeps the water still moving. So I came to the conclusion that healing doesn't mean never hurting again. It just means the hurt doesn't own me, and you know, it doesn't drive my decisions around. It doesn't silence my joy, and progress is what makes it all better. Progress should happen even if it doesn't look pretty enough. And here's another question to anyone who's listening. Will you be able to let go of the idea that you should have been further along? The third question that popped into my head is, am I afraid of being happy? You know how I said pain can be really familiar, and happiness is kind of scary when you're, used to pain being constant. I felt like happiness doesn't last too long, and that's one of the reason that I was afraid of being happy, because it'll just poof vanish again. Especially as an artist, I kind of use the pain that I feel as a fuel to my art. There are times that I have thought, like, if I lose my pain, would I lose the motivation to make art? And this kind of became a constant warning in my head that once I feel too happy, I feel like you might lose your way. And I go back to, feeling hurt and being wallowing in the pain. Happiness kind of feels temporary, like something it just comes and goes. But I should come to realize that maybe all the happiness is not a lie. Maybe feeling joyful is not a trap. Maybe it's a reward for the amount of effort I put in. And I want you guys to ask yourself, what if happiness isn't shallow but safe? I've always been hard on myself for not being healed for a lot of things. And I kind of felt like I had to, with how deep I feel and how easier it is for me to understand other people's emotions. But recognizing my own and dealing with it was always kind of annoying, to be honest. There's always a part of me that still cries over things that that happened a long time ago, and I kind of pretend that it doesn't hurt me anymore, that I am not the weak person I was back then. I realized being real deserves grace, and I have to come to terms with it and love myself for who I am, who I've become. And it was easier to write it, but to actually live and love myself is something I'm still trying to practice. So I let you guys know what and how it goes. And the last question that came to my head was, am I who I am because of what happened to me or how I decided to deal with it? And I realized, yes, the pain did shape me, but I decided how I act with the pain I felt. And that is what led to me being more kinder than I was back then, more attentive to people than I was back then, more responsible to my own actions. Because back then I was just living life as it's just a game. Thinking about all of this came, brought me to an understanding that the story of who I am is not over yet. Yes, pain did write the first few lines of my story, but I get to write the rest of the story with my own understanding, my own realizations, being healed from all the traumatic experiences and pain that I went through all my life. And I want you guys to ask yourself as well, what story do you want to write next? Think about it. I know this episode has been different to the previous ones. One, I kept talking in English, and two, I wanted to know what doing spoken poetry is like. And I feel like I kind of pulled it off. And this is the thought I want you guys to end the episode with. Healing is a process, and we consistently go through it again and again and again. It's not like we are healed, then we are, better people. The idea of us, wanting to be healed from all the traumatic experiences is what makes us a better person. So let's all heal from our traumatic experiences and be kinder to each other and to everyone who's around us. And this is where I want to end the note. See you guys in the next episode. Bye.